Welcome to the Intrinsic First Leadership Podcast. I'm Erin with Intrinsic First. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date on our latest episodes. Ready to dive into the world of leadership? Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Intrinsic First Leadership Podcast. This is our first episode since 8 months, since last year, despite having recordings still coming out because we're so slow at editing. But we're excited today. We have a special guest, Dr. Erin. She is the CEO and co-founder of Lightfoot, Self and Soul. Look at that. See?
Hey, not bad.
Short-term memory work. So we're going to talk about leadership and mindfulness and a whole bunch of other topics related to that today, I think. So as we always do, I'll start off with Erin, if you don't mind giving a little introduction and telling us about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Dr. Erin. I'm a holistic wellness and attachment guide, and I specialize in I help the helpers, the healers, the empaths, the energetic sensitives who struggle with anxiety, learn how to get out of your head and into your body so you can strengthen your intuition and self-trust in order to form deep, thriving, secure, soul-connected relationships to self and other, and lead from an emotionally regulated space. And when I say anxiety, what I'm referring to is that worried, nervous, jittery, buzzy feeling where you wake up in the morning with that fireball in your chest and the racing, ruminating, catastrophizing thoughts, and spend the rest of your day trudging through an overwhelming state of panic, fear, dread, and unease. So I have my PhD in mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and relational leadership, and I have struggled with anxiety my whole life. I'm also a bona fide energetically sensitive empath, meaning I feel everything. And where my work brought me was because I've struggled with anxiety. I've struggled with anxiety my whole life. I'm talking all the way from early childhood, middle school, high school, into adulthood. And I always just thought that this worried, nervous feeling was normal, or that there was something wrong with me. Because on the outside, I appeared buttoned up and emotionally intelligent, and I was the strong one holding it together for everyone else. Though on the inside, I was crumbling and just wrecked with this, the feeling of anxiety, even though I didn't know that that's what it was. I really struggled with anger, depression. I had chronic migraines, brain fog, random mysterious gut health issues, so much body tension. I couldn't relax. I constantly attracted emotionally unavailable people into my life. I had zero boundaries, and I just felt really lost and disconnected from myself. And though it wasn't until my first time, it was my first job out of college, and I'll never forget this experience. This is where things began to change for me. So we were sitting around a conference table practicing this thing called mindfulness breathing techniques. Well, I'd never heard of mindfulness at this time, but I was willing to give it a try. Plus I was new to the job, so I wasn't going to tell them no. And again, I will never forget this experience. We were sitting around the conference table, practicing this thing called mindfulness. We were inhaling and exhaling. And I distinctly remember when we were done thinking, okay, I don't know what just happened, but I want more of that. That was the first time in my life that I'd ever felt my whole body and nervous system just slow down. And I couldn't help but recognize how calm and focused and present and pleasant I felt only minutes after a simple breathing practice. Well, that one simple breathwork session turned out being one of the most pivotal moments of my life that sparked my breadcrumb trail toward wellness and healing. I mean, I started taking all these mindfulness classes and meditation classes and yoga classes and breathwork classes because I just wanted to keep soaking up this yummy, good feeling of calm because I was tired of feeling like a cat on a hot tin roof all the time. And so, fun fact, that became the North Star of my dissertation, which is in mindfulness for kindergartners in public education. It's real cute, right? And in my study, there was this one day where this little 5-year-old came in after recess and she had had her feelings hurt. One of her peers said something mean to her. And she said, I'm just feeling so dysregulated. I need to go jump on the trampoline. And it was in that moment, I mean, it hit me like a lightning bolt. Oh my gosh. This is a 5-year-old and she knows exactly how she's feeling and what she needs in order to create relief. And I just knew in that moment, oh my gosh, adults need this too. We were never taught how to regulate our emotions. And here's the thing, emotions are everything. Emotions are everything. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships and your consistent emotions. I mean, you can have $1 million in your bank account, but if your dominant emotional pattern is anger, if you're angry, pissed off, frustrated, and stressed out, your world is going to feel angry, pissed off, frustrated, and stressed out. And same thing with your relationships. I know that when I'm in that anxious, agitated, worried, nervous state, it completely affects my ability to lead and to be present with others. I tend to be micromanagey, critical, controlling, edgy, irritable, snippy. Yet when I'm grounded and in my body, I can relax. I'm present. I'm focused. I'm available. I'm much more pleasant to be around. Ask my children. They'll tell you.
Right on. So I guess a lot of that feeling was kind of geared you towards your PhD. Is that in those experiences how long did it take you before like your first mindfulness course or breathing session until you decided to go get, a PhD in mindfulness and so forth?
So that was in that experience at the conference table. That was in 2010. Okay. And it was from there that I just started, again, taking all these classes, and it just kind of evolved. I didn't choose this path chose me. And so I had 2 years later, that's when I started my master's in transformative leadership.
Okay.
And I was just so entranced with this idea of training children in mindful breathing techniques. And that's what my capstone action project was on, as I conducted this 8-week mindfulness program in a transitional kindergarten classroom. And from there, it was like, I need to understand this at the root. And so that's when I continued on in the doctoral program, and here we are. And so my doctoral work is with children, and I firmly believe that I was brought by my angels, guides, universe, source, spirit, spirituality of your own understanding. I believe that I was brought to understand the inner world, particularly the emotional capacity of a 5-year-old, because I'm actually meant to work with the inner child of adults. Because for me, the North Star of my dissertation was, how might my life have been different if I had been taught to breathe as a child? And not that I had some tumultuous childhood, though it may have alleviated some of my anxiety and stress if I had words and language to help me describe how I was feeling, along with tools to help me regulate. So I would say, to answer your question, I've been fast forward, I've been practicing mindfulness for 15 plus years, and it has flipped my world inside out and upside down in the best way possible.
No, it's very cool. Because like a lot of...
My dog came to visit.
Yeah, he did. That's Cookie. Cookie Sharpton. So, because what I found really fascinating was like this notion of leadership in a kindergarten setting, right? And you talk about it. You had some experience with transformational leadership, but we're talking about what you call relational leadership. Can you help us understand like the difference between that theory and like with kindergartners and what leadership looks like, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. So with kindergarten, and I was pretty explicit about this in my dissertation, that it was never about creating leadership within 5-year-olds, it was about planting the seed. So I used this plant metaphor that this was the time to plant the seed for relational leadership capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And what the research is really showing is that that's the direction that leadership is going, is relational, that this top-down hierarchical leadership structure is now becoming archaic. It's no longer working given how globalized we are. Though in order to be in a relational setting, you need to have a relationship with yourself first.
Right.
Our connections with others are only as strong as the relationship we have with ourselves first. And so why 5-year-olds? Okay. Well, there's a neurological restructuring that's occurring in the brain at age 5. It's called the window of opportunity. And it's this neurological restructuring in the prefrontal cortex, which is, this is the thinking part of your brain. So like with the kids, we'd say, your prefrontal cortex, this is your thinky spot. And we'd all go, dee, 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 and they'd all go, dee, 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 and it was so cute. And so my argument was, if we train skills that teach you how to be in your body, how to regulate your nervous system, how to slow down, how to cultivate internal reflection skills at age 5, then this becomes part of who they are moving forward, according, of course, if there's continuity in these skills. But so it was really about planting the seed that develops the capacity for relational leadership, rather than expecting them to be leaders at this age.
And the way you're doing that is through mindfulness practice. And I think you mentioned a couple of different curriculums that you're using for that. That's your dissertation in the study, which I think is great. And I think that's a key point, is that you're just planting the seed. You're not expecting them to do it all. And I think it's super important, right?
Was it a longitudinal study?
No, this was it was a year-long study, 180 days in the school year. I would have loved to do a longitudinal study, but I also wanted to graduate. So.
Well, yeah, longitudinal for a PhD is tough because you're basically voluntarily dragging out the time it takes.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there's definitely room for my study to become a longitudinal study, for sure. No, this is a qualitative case study. Got it. A phenomenological based qualitative case study.
And it happened during COVID too. So they went from in person to online. My wife's a preschool teacher, and I remember when that happened, and she had to carry on online with her preschoolers, and they're like 3 and 4, and she's there, had a Zoom on, and she's dancing in the loft. She's dancing to entertain the kids. I got a picture or video. It's pretty cool. But a lot of teachers had to do that. They had to adjust during that time. And then you're in the middle of your study.
That was a big adjustment. It was really interesting how, because my study was during the COVID year, to where the first 2 trimesters, my study was broken up into trimesters, first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. And the whole entire third trimester, truly from the first week of the trimester, we transitioned from in-person to online, which was really interesting. It provided this really interesting compare and contrast to see how the kiddos were relating with each other, and then to see how they were online, which was fascinating during the era of social distancing, when the heart of my research was about social connection.
Right.
It was really interesting to see, and to see how these skills of mindfulness, because they were trained in mindfulness every single day. They did breathing exercises, emotional literacy development every day, and to see it working, quote unquote working, on an online platform with these 5-year-olds it was fascinating. And what that really showed the teacher in my study, was that the classroom wasn't the dependent variable, that they were still, these children would sit online doing their breathing exercises, and they weren't coerced, they weren't threatened, they weren't in trouble if they didn't. They just participated because they loved the feeling. They loved doing the mindfulness breathing. They loved, when we were in class and they would line up in their little circle to do their mindful breathing. They absolutely loved it.
Oh, it's a great form of therapy or self-regulate, just teaching how to self-regulate through breathing. So my experience has been in youth football for the last 4 years, where 8-year-olds to like 11 or 12, where we would spend the first 5 minutes just breathing and just teaching them how to, and we would get into like box breathing and so forth. But it's a great tool for anyone to use, especially kids. So 8 years old is the youngest I went. So to hear you doing it with 5-year-olds is great, because it's a very simple skill.
Yeah.
And it's one to be aware. And then the other part I really liked is the fact that you taught them like what these emotions are called, right? Emotional literacy is huge, because once you can label it, then you understand. You begin to start to really understand what's going on. And I think a lot of adults don't even know if they're feeling frustrated or angry. they're sad.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, that's really the only way to emotionally regulate, is to be able to label and describe your emotion. Well, how are you going to label and describe your emotion if you don't know how it feels in your body? And so every morning when the children would line up, I'm telling you, the teacher of this study was like a unicorn. She was like, I want to be in your class. I want to be. Every day she would crouch down and get eye contact with them, and she would ask them. They would be asked how they were feeling, and they had this thing called block talk, which derives from Dr. Mark Brackett's work, who's he's the director of the Emotional Intelligence Center at Yale. And he created what's called the mood meter. And so the mood meter is basically red, yellow, blue, and green color coding system to describe your emotions that works for children as young as 4. And so basically the red is you're feeling really angry and frustrated and just really upregulated and edgy. Yellow is hyper, silly, maybe anxious. So red and yellow is more of that upregulated nervous system state. Then you have blue. You think blue, sad, sick, lonely, tired, kind of blue. And then green. Green means neutral, ready to learn, feeling regulated, feeling grounded. And so every day they would have block talk, where there was each side of the block had a red, a blue, a yellow, or a green side, and they would show where they were at, show their emotional state. And the beauty of this act was that they were able to be seen in their emotional state without being judged, without being slammed, or, oh, you're feeling red. Oh, we got to do something about this. The message that was instilled is it is okay to feel how you are feeling. And if you're uncomfortable, what do you need? How are you feeling? And what do you need? How are you feeling? And what do you need? And so that example that I provided of that child who jumped on the trampoline, that is exactly what she demonstrated was, here's how I'm feeling. And here's what I need. Here's what I need in order to move the energy. That's also
important to teach adults how to deal with that, because a lot of adults, parents, and I know I've been there, you're feeling bad or you're feeling blue. Here's what you need to do to fix it. And that's not what those kids need, right? They need to be able to figure out and advocate for themselves and what they need to feel better. But I think so many parents want to jump in and fix it. And that's the kind of the message I always think is like, you don't have to fix it. You just got to be there and be present with them and let them kind of figure it out. And so
and help them learn how to sit with hard emotions. We try to or excuse it away, and instead it's how do you check in and learn what's going on in your inner world. I mean, most people are living from the neck up and have no idea what's going on in their inner world.
Right, because sometimes those moods or those feelings show up in different parts of your body, right? We know that you get the gut punch and you're like, oh, I feel terrible, but there's other tension that happens around your body, and it's different for everybody. So those self-check-ins, I think, are really good too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really, really great. And again, you teach a 4-year-old how to do it, and you do it over multiple years. It just has a huge ripple effect, and they can do it as adults. Hopefully, is the goal. But I think it's fantastic work. I really enjoyed reading about it.
So I'm interested in the research in terms of some of the methods. You said it was qualitative. Did you have like a control group, or you were just doing this with the class and then tracking and doing interviews or assessing? What was kind of the methods and then some of the main results you found?
Yeah, sure. So I deliberately, I wasn't the one teaching or facilitating the mindfulness lessons. Now I have taught, hundreds of children in my past through mainly the Mind Up curriculum, which is through the Hahn Foundation. If you're familiar with Goldie Hawn, that's her foundation, the Hahn Foundation. And it's one of my favorite. It is truly my favorite mindfulness-based curriculum. There's several out there. And I love this one because it teaches children the language of their brain, as well as social emotional learning and how to self-regulate. And it's really designed to weave into all subject areas within the school day. And so my role was principally just observation. I was observing the teacher, taking copious notes, and then I would conduct semi-structured interviews with the teacher. I conducted an interview with her 21 days after the school year started to give her enough time to really get a sense of the feel and the vibe of the class culture. And then at the end of all 3 trimesters. And I asked her 4 questions, the same 4 questions across the board around what are you noticing about the emotional capacity of the class? What are their social dynamics? What are you noticing in terms of emotional and social intelligence? And then pro-social behavior being acts of kindness, care, concern. Emotional intelligence being how emotionally aware are they? How self-management, other management, relational capacity, and then social awareness. How aware of the other are they? And also taking into account that these are 5-year-olds, and the 5-year-old brain they're very me-centered, not in a narcissistic way, but they don't really have the cognitive ability at that point to be so aware of the other. It's like they're in this space at that age where they're just beginning to become aware.
Yep.
But that's the whole point of cultivating the skills early, is so that they know how to come back to themselves. And the more you understand yourself, that is how you begin to understand others. You can't understand others if you don't understand yourself, period.
Go ahead, sorry.
So what were some of the findings? So you did, that's almost what I would call longitudinal. You had 4 times that you were doing the same interview of the teacher. Did you find changes over that time, or what were you looking for, I guess, your hypothesis?
Yeah, so what I was looking for is relational qualities of relational leadership, which I considered to be emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and pro-social behavior. Do qualities of relational leadership emerge in a mindfulness-based transitional kindergarten classroom, and if so, in what scenarios? And that's why I chunked it into these 3 trimesters. And so with this class, it was what's called transitional kindergarten. And what's unique about transitional kindergarten is that, at least at the time of the study, they were all within 3 months of age. So in order to qualify for transitional kindergarten, they had to be born between September 2nd and December 2nd, which made them exactly 3 months apart. And what's cool about that is that we can track their developmental trajectory with a little bit more accuracy than if their birthdays were spread across the entire year. Mm-hmm. And so with each trimester, really what I was looking for in the first trimester, I was looking to see just what is the case, so it was really looking at the case being, because it's a case study. So what is the dynamics of this classroom, and what, just getting a really rich, thick description of the case. Second trimester, I was looking to see, okay, so how are the mindfulness lessons really landing? Like what demonstrations of mindfulness and emotional intelligence are beginning to show themselves? And then in trimester 3, because they were approaching, by this time, all of them had turned 5. They all started off at 4. And then by this time, they were all about 5 and a half or so. And so what we were looking at is what elements of pro-social leadership are we seeing at this stage? And again, what I would say that one of the primary findings was that there wasn't a whole lot of demonstration of relational leadership because, again, they're very me-centered. Mm-hmm. But what we saw was the development of the capacity for mindful leadership.
What does that look like? If you don't want, seeing the capacity for it, what does that look like?
Seeing the development of the capacity for, so the capacity to demonstrate emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and pro-social behavior. This really showed itself. So there was a few different scenarios that I had described in my dissertation. One being the trampoline story, another being so there was this one student who, this poor boy, he was doing a public speaking. They were doing a public speaking.
At 5.
Public speaking experience. And he was so nervous. This poor boy, like you couldn't even hear him. He's like, my name is. And the students in the class, without being prompted, were saying, you can do it. You've got this.
That's fantastic.
Yay. Oh, I like your project. I like the stickers. That's an example of pro-social behavior. They were demonstrating care and concern for this student. And this particular student was what we would refer to as a runner. He had a coping mechanism of elopement when he felt really anxious. Like this kid would bolt out the door and go running. And the kids knew that. They knew that if they laughed at him, if they mocked him, because I mean, it's like kind of funny at 5 years old when you see, someone up there struggling, but no, they chose not to. They chose to support him. It wasn't the teacher saying, hey, you need to support your friend here. They did that on their own. That was the development. The developing the capacity for relational leadership, for being able to, for understanding self and other, and cultivating those skills by understanding how you're feeling and, getting into your body and so many different examples. And then online when we finally went to the Zoom room, there was examples of students asking about each other. And what was interesting is on the very first day that we got onto the Zoom room, and I'm talking, there's like 24 little 5-year-olds on this little Brady Bunch screen, and they're all like waving at each other and making silly faces into the camera. They knew exactly who was not there. Oh, where's so-and-so? Where's so-and-so? Oh, they're not here. They're not here. And what was interesting is the first 2 trimesters, we, as the teacher and I, didn't think that they were really aware of each other at all. And it wasn't until we got online that they demonstrated how aware of each other that they actually were. Yeah. And it's like, that's when we started realizing, this is actually really working. This is
so cool.
They're really becoming aware of each other. And so again, we weren't expecting mastery. But what was showing was this capacity for that there's a possibility for developing relational leadership capacity.
And not that you planned it, but I think COVID really helped bring that out too. That's really cool, right?
Yeah.
I feel like
Aaron's
got a question.
I do.
He's thinking his gears are grinding.
I wish you could have done it as like with a control, because I guess my biggest question is, from a scientific perspective, you can't say that mindfulness had anything to do with that, right? Because
totally. It's not causality. Yeah.
Right? It's it could be, but the way it is. So I'm just wondering though, because I don't know this enough about children's development and stuff, but you see videos all the time about kids helping each other out and doing those selfless things. I think kids are more selfless than others, but you've obviously worked with a lot of kids. Is that unique to that group and how they were, like some of those things that you were seeing? It sounds like that was unique to that group, and that mindfulness very likely did. It's qualitative, but if you were to look at another group that didn't have that type of support, the guess would be that they likely would not have had maybe that level of awareness or, interaction or concern, emotional knowledge. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's a qualitative case study as well. So I was definitely not trying to prove anything or, this would require a lot more quantitative research and like cortisol samples and whatnot to prove that mindfulness was in fact working.
So tell me about attachment styles.
Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. So I've been coaching clients for the past 5 years or so. And the most common phrase that I hear in my practice is something to the effect of, I have the house, I have the kids, I have the car, I have the partner, I have the partridge and the pear tree, but I don't know who I am. Clients in their 70s say this to me. And so when I hear somebody say, I want to be happy, the subtext of what I'm hearing them say is, I want to be secure. And when we think of secure, welcome to the world of integrated attachment theory and how that even links to, okay, so what does that even have to do with mindfulness and emotions? Well, when you're studying children, you're bound to come across attachment theory. And that's what occurred for me. As I was doing my research, I kept, when I was reading all these journals, I kept seeing this attachment style. And while I didn't emphasize too much on attachment styles in my actual study that was in the discussion, the conceptual discussion portion of my chapter. So attachment styles. Okay, what does this all have to do with each other? Well, in order to cultivate a strong relationship to self, and I am 10 toes dug into the ground convinced of, is by learning your attachment style. Because here's the thing. So with all these clients that I'm working with, they can often feel that the overworking, the perfectionism, the people pleasing, that's what's causing the anxiety, and in many ways it is. But what these all have in common is one thing, and spoiler alert, it's not burnout, it's unresolved attachment wounds. So again, okay, what does that even mean? So your attachment style is a subconscious set of rules that you learned in early childhood for what feels safe relating. And when we think of what anxiety is, all anxiety is a buildup of internal problems that creates emotional residue in the subconscious mind. Because we only experience pain and suffering for two reasons: unresolved core wounds and unmet needs. The unmet need is that pain, that sting that we feel, the need for emotional connection, reassurance, validation, security, approval, adventure, fun. And the suffering is the story we tell ourselves around it. So I need emotional connection, but I believe that I'm not enough. I'm unworthy. Something's wrong with me. I'm a burden. I'm going to be abandoned, rejected. I'm bad. Something's wrong with me. I'm defective. And when you understand your attachment style, you understand your core wounds, your needs, your communication patterns, your emotional style, your relationship to boundaries, and your subconscious coping mechanisms. And so there's four.
Okay, I was going to ask that same question. Sorry.
Yeah.
4 different styles, attachment styles, right? And
yeah, there's 4 attachment styles. So, okay. and this begins at the age. I mean, your attachment style begins to be. It's starting its formation between the ages of 0 to 2. It's like even pre-verbal. This is why oftentimes when people like they have some kind of like emotional issue or whatnot, and they can't really describe it. Sometimes it's because the trauma or maladaptive experience that they experienced was before they were at the age of being able to speak about it. So,
can you define attachment style one more time?
Sure. So attachment styles your attachment style is a subconscious set of rules. So you think subconscious, like Freud always uses the iceberg metaphor. So the iceberg is, you see the tip of the iceberg, but then the behemoth is at the bottom. Right. That's your subconscious mind.
Not consciously aware of.
Yeah, you're not even consciously aware. And so your subconscious mind is being developed between the ages of 0 to 8. But your attachment style is really being formed between zero to 2. I mean, it can change over time. So basically how it forms is through repetition and emotion. Whatever you're repeatedly exposed to, met with that strong emotional response. So how this breaks down, there's 4 attachment styles. First off, we have our anxious preoccupied. This is our love addict, okay? This is the person who you can't not love an anxious attachment, okay? They're so sweet, they're so charming, they're so loving. And their strongest core wound is a fear of abandonment. Why? Because these are the people that in childhood, they received enough feeling of love to associate that feeling as, ooh, I love this feeling of love. I just want it all the time. But maybe their parents worked a lot, or maybe they were, one of the parents left the home, or they were with the grandparents all the time. And what they begin to subconsciously associate is, why are you leaving me? I love this feeling of love. Because again, a child doesn't have the cognitive ability to understand that your parents aren't leaving you. They're going to work. Children personalize everything. And so they're personalizing, why are you leaving me? This doesn't feel good. I want your closeness and your connection all the time. Ergo, that's one of their highest needs. So their highest fear is fear of abandonment, met with a need for a connection, closeness, proximity. This is the adult that then panics when their partner pulls away and will text 5 times in a row when they haven't heard from their partner, because there's this feeling of panic and a need for.
How would that show up in a leader, I guess, that adult leader? How would that show up, I guess?
Yeah, and an adult leader. Oh, so I think of the anxiously attached leader is like the cheerleader leader. These are the people who, they really understand people. They're really attuned to people because, again, their subconscious programs are all around relationship and proximity. Okay. And so in a leadership context, this is the leader that, will be really well with, do really well with like teamwork and really encouraging the team. However, this can also be the leader that overfunctions or overcompensates, maybe micromanages a little bit out of either fear of disconnection, or maybe a strong need for approval and meeting their really feeling of value. But they can do really well in leadership positions. What they need to work on, and just anxious attachment, when I'm working with an anxious attached an individual, what we're really working on is learning how to self-soothe, because they tend to self-soothe by externally. A lot of external validation and self-soothing through people. And so, but they do really well with working with people, working in groups and teams and leading groups and teams, and just
but
really
could be seen as a micromanager in some sense.
It can be a little bit. And this isn't a general rule. These are patterns, and everything in life is patterns, right? So the patterns is that, we can see that they could be maybe a little bit micromanagey and maybe struggle with boundaries. I mean, even in a work setting, anxiously attached people might be the ones who take on other people's work, don't really stand up for themselves out of fear of abandonment and rejection. The subconscious program is, if I speak up for myself, or if I state a boundary, then you might leave me. And so I'm going to do everything to preserve our connection. Because everything, again, we are governed by our subconscious mind and our subconscious programs, which are formed at a very early age. And the good news is that they're not permanent. You can change your attachment style, and I'm a perfect example.
Once you're aware of it, right, then you can work on it.
Again, it's all self-awareness. This is why we want to cultivate self-awareness.
We need the other 3. I'm getting Nancy here.
What's the other 3?
What are the other 3?
That's your anxious attachment. On the other end on the other end of the spectrum, we have our dismissive avoidant. This is our lone ranger. So while the anxious attachment is, their whole thought process is around relationships and people, and in a romantic context, if they're not in a relationship, they're always looking for the next relationship. They just want to be around people. Dismissive avoidants, or DAs, are the opposite. These are the ones who dismissive avoidance received, for the most part, I mean, almost without exception, some form of emotional neglect as a child. And this isn't like corporal punishment. This is just more if they reached out for a bid for connection. Like, let's say they fell down and scraped their knee and they cried and they needed a hug. They would be met with, stop crying, stop being a baby, suck it up, grow up. And so they learned, oh, these things called emotions don't feel good, and needing anybody else definitely doesn't feel good. So I'm going to meet my needs on my own. They become hyper independent. They become so almost myopically focused on just meeting their own needs. And really what this is rooted in is this core wound around being defective. Because as children, if they can't get their needs met through their caregivers, children personalize everything. So they internalize this shameful feeling. And what does shame make you want to do? It makes you want to run and hide. I don't know about you, but whenever I'm feeling embarrassed, I don't want to be around anybody else. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of how DAs are operating in their day to day.
And then as a leader, how does that look? Yeah.
What was that?
As a leader, how does that look?
Oh, so while anxiously attached are really in their feelings, dismissive avoidance are very intellectual. They are so great with strategy and staying on task. They don't really get involved in work drama and politics and all that. They're, they can be really good leaders in terms of like delegating and really just focusing on getting the job done. They can often be perceived as maybe a bit more distant. They're not going to get too emotionally close. I mean, that doesn't mean they're mean or rude. They're just not. They're going to keep it very, very intellectual, but they're really good at staying on task. A lot of their identity can get connected with the work that they do, and so they can just really take their job very, very seriously. Okay. But yeah, so in terms of leadership, it's like let's get the job done and delegating, and very practical, very grounded. This is the no drama llama. I mean, DAs are so grounded. They're just refreshing. They can be a breath of fresh air. Unfortunately, again, they're struggling with this shame wound that really inhibits their ability to go deep with other people emotionally, because they don't even want to feel their own emotions. Oh, so when I'm working with a dismissive avoidant, what we're really focusing on is getting them back into their body, because they can often operate on a low level state of anxiety. Mm-hmm. And so we want to get them into their body for them to feel a sense of safety in their body, and that their emotions are they're not scary. They're not, your emotions aren't scary. All your emotions are doing is pointing you toward a wound that was tripped, the wire that was tripped on a wound, an unmet need, and honorary mention to a boundary that was violated. So a lot of emotional literacy, getting them into their body, and then learning how to speak their needs for independence and space, so that it doesn't cause problems with their partner.
All right. So Erin's going to ask, what's the other two? What's next?
Keep going.
All right, keep going.
What's the next one? Number 3.
So we have our anxious.
Very task oriented.
We have our anxious, we have our dismissive avoidant, and right smack dab in the center, we have our fearful avoidant. And this is the camp that I come from. Mm-hmm. So fearful avoidants have both ends of the spectrum. Fearful avoidants were often raised in households that had a lot of chaos to some degree. This could be, maybe they moved around a lot, or there was, a lot of maybe like yelling in the house, or on an extreme level, there might have been domestic violence or drug and alcohol. That's really extreme. More commonly, what we see though is if they had maybe a narcissistic parent or a highly critical parent. And what this imprinted in the subconscious mind was, I need to be able to read between the lines. So fearful avoidance, these are the people that can walk into a room and read the energy like that. They notice changes in micro expression and a tone of voice and different facial expressions that changes. If there is a change in pattern, the FA noticed it before anybody else did. it's almost like they can see through people. And why this hypervigilance developed was a subconscious coping mechanism for safety. Because there was so much inconsistency, they had to read between the lines. Okay, are you going to be nice? Are you going to be mean? Are you here with me? Are you not? And so the FA's most dominant core wound is really around betrayal. Can I trust you? Can I trust you? And a need for emotional presence. I need to know that you're trustworthy, that you're stable, that I can trust you. And so when I'm working with an FA, that's what we're working a lot on, is self-trust. Because again, it all boils down to how your relationship to self first. So your ability to trust yourself and your ability to trust your environment. So you don't have to be so hyper vigilant. We FAs really can oscillate. These are the people who are hot and cold in relationships. Stop, go, in, out, up, down, hot, cold, come here, go away.
As a leader, then is it almost like, I'm just trying to see what an FA look like as a leader. Is it unpredictable at times, or is it?
Yes, yeah. So because you think of an FA, they're constantly swinging between their anxious and their dismissive avoidance side, constantly. And so this looks like both a craving for connection while also fearing it at the same time. A lot of inner chaos. And what this looks like in a leadership context, FAs, because they're so emotionally aware of others, oh my gosh, they make great therapists in human behavior settings. They make great entrepreneurs because they have all this, this energy. They can bop around. Really highly intuitive, really emotionally intelligent. They have a lot of ability to be they're just so giving. But then once they get to a point to where they feel like they're not receiving, they'll get really resentful and they'll cut things off. So again, swing, swing, swing. In a leadership context, they can be really intuitive and insightful and aware of what's going on with the group. Though at times it's like how I would describe this is they really enjoy the planning, but maybe not so much the people managing, because it can swing them into their codependent side to where it feels like, I don't want to have to manage all of your emotions, because managing all of my emotions is enough. Job.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then the next one is my favorite attachment area, I guess.
Yeah. So then we have our secure. So the secure, this is what would be what. So again, when I hear somebody say, I want to be happy, the subtext of what I'm hearing them say is, I want to be secure. Why? Because securely attached people aren't walking around with a whole bunch of core wounds and unmet needs taking up that mental real estate. They tend to be emotionally balanced, emotionally regulated, statistically do best in relationships, really grounded, really effective communicators, are really good at speaking their boundaries. They get their needs met. And in a leadership context, this is the leader who's will do like weekly check-ins with their team. They're able to receive feedback without taking it personally. They can handle challenges without blaming or shaming the group. And in terms of conflict resolution, they really want to see a resolution for both sides. So there's very just grounded and comfortable with themselves, do really well in group settings, also do well with working alone. They don't take a lot personally, because when you're in an insecure attachment style, we tend to take things really personally because we're sparked by our core wounds. Though when you're in your secure, grounded state, you feel solid within yourself. And that's really the leadership style why I work with empaths and emotionally or energetically sensitive people like myself, because we feel so much. We feel and absorb everybody's emotions. By learning how to reprogram these core wounds and get your needs met in order to become secure, that also strengthens your auric field. It creates this solidity within yourself, that you become secure, and it completely affects the way that you lead and your ability to be present with others by understanding what's going on in your own.
So my question with the attachment styles is like, once you identify attachment style, you're not like forever labeled that way. Because if you do the work, you can kind of move over to this secure, secure behavior, we'll call it. But does that mean your attachment style changes as well?
100%. Yes. Okay. You weren't born with your attachment style, which means it can change. Okay. It's just patterns. It's what you're repeatedly exposed to. Again, repetition plus emotion. So children, when they're repeatedly exposed to certain dynamics, they begin to imprint certain behaviors and certain patterns. Though it really just depends on who you're around in your environment that you're repeatedly exposed to. For example, somebody who's even, in childhood, they were, so how does a secure child, how do you form a secure child? Well, this is the child that was really, they had a lot of approach-oriented behavior. So when they fell down and hurt their knee, their parent would say, "Oh, what do you need? Do you need a Band-Aid? Are you okay? Let me give you a hug." And so they learned from a very early age, my needs matter. I matter. I'm seen and I'm heard and I matter. Though let's say that secure child grows up and gets into a relationship with a narcissist, somebody who's really critical and mean and just puts them down. They might enter that relationship secure and then come out a fearful avoidant because now they're all hyper vigilant and had to protect themselves. Though when you do the work, and by work, it's my whole jam is about getting into the body, because in order to recondition your attachment style, we have to get into your nervous system, which is in the body. This is why I have a love-hate relationship even with affirmations, because you can tell yourself, I'm a millionaire and I'm all these wonderful things in your brain, but if your body doesn't believe it, that thought's not even going to make it past the brainstem. And so by learning how to get into your body, and my entry point is through the breath. The breath is what helps to calm and regulate your nervous system. And when your nervous system is calm, that's when the blood flows back to the prefrontal cortex. Because when you're in that anxious, edgy state, your blood isn't flowing to the prefrontal cortex. No, it's flowing to the limbic system, which is that primal area of your brain. That's that hypervigilant fight or flight on alert state. It also messes with your digestion as well. Just and then if your digestive system and your gut's messed up, then
and that's where there's no language in there in your limbic system. That's where language is like this gut feeling you have. You don't know what it is. So when you're able to start actually doing the work and labeling it, now you're moving into your neocortex where you can actually label it. So that makes a lot of sense. And I agree with the breath, because I think the breath is really a good reset too, especially if someone's freaking out on something. You can always bring them back to hopefully a stable state and have that conversation, I guess.
For these attachment styles, I looked them up. I think I looked them up online, and I thought I remember seeing like a quadrant type of thing where there were two axes where high on one or high on both, low on both, high and low. But when you were describing it, you said right in the middle is the third one. And then, so how do you visualize this, or what are the kind of components? I'm trying to better understand these attachment styles, because as you're talking about them, so we do a lot with disposition and DISC, and I couldn't help but relate. Like a lot of what you're saying is, okay, well, you're really just talking about someone who's more task focused versus more people focused. Or you're talking about somebody who's more risk averse versus risk taking, right? And there's these modes of response. Something that Dre would always talk about is that the emotional side, the affective side of how a person behaves and responds is always underrepresented and not considered enough. And everyone kind of wants to logically think that we're doing things because it's how we thought about it and that we're rational beings. And obviously cognition does come into it, the way we think about stuff. But the gut and so much, and what you're talking about, I think, is that emotion is at the root of it all, right? And it's driving that. But I'm just trying to better understand how to visualize this and how to kind of understand these attachment theories, because I relate it into what I know in terms of like disposition and modes of response and behavior, that kind of thing.
I see Attachment styles on a spectrum.
Okay.
And again, it's not fixed. It's not even a diagnosis. It's your patterns. It's your patterns of how you feel comfortable relating to others. And I see attachment style as the ultimate relationship to self. It's the ultimate relationship to self. And when you understand who you are, that's how you understand other people. But yeah, so and you can have a mixture of attachment styles. You might be dominantly anxious, but leaning fearful. Or if you're fearful avoidant, for example, because you have both the anxious and dismissive, it really depends on who you're in relationship with, family, friends, romantic, especially romantic, but then also coworkers. Who are you in relationship with? So if you're firmly fearful avoidant and I'm connecting with a dismissive avoidant, that's going to activate my anxious side to where I'm going to want to get a little closer. But then if I'm in relationship with an anxious, that's going to push me into my avoidant side where I'm like, oh, now you're getting too close. Get back. And if you're dismissive avoidant, maybe you're dismissive avoidant, but leaning, it would probably be more like leaning FA, but you're a little bit more distant. You kind of want the closeness, but you're a little too hypervigilant, but you really want the distance. So again, it all just boils down to really understanding yourself and your patterns. And because you can't solve a problem until you've identified what the problem is in the first place. Right. And this all boils down to self-reflection skills.
So you said avoidant. What was the first one you did where it was like the more people-focused relationship? Anxious,
preoccupied.
Anxious, preoccupied. So it's not, because it sounded like there were multiple spectrums. You have like avoidant, like I don't want to be around people versus I do want to be around people. Is there multiple continuums from that perspective?
Well, how I see it is that is the spectrum, is anxious attach on this side, that I want to be around people, relationships are my jam. The other end of the spectrum being I want to be alone, independent, autonomous, and I need my space. And what's really interesting is when these two get into relationship, because they attract each other like moths to a flame. It's fascinating. That's a whole other conversation about psychology, but that's why they attract each other.
Yeah, interesting. Are you familiar? Did we talk about motivation theory? Are you familiar with self-determination theory? Did we talk about that?
I've heard of it, but I don't know enough to speak on it.
Yeah. Well, so when you started talking about our needs, right, and when our needs aren't being fulfilled, self-determination theory identifies 3 psychological needs that we have for our psychological energy, our motivation, right? And of course, we have physiological needs. We have to have security and food and water and sleep and so forth. But they have a very strict criteria, and I wouldn't be able to rattle off all, I think, 8 or 12 rules for how to, qualify a need. But ultimately, there's only 3 based on this research, which is autonomy, relatedness, and competence. And when you were talking, I think most of what you were saying fit into those, particularly relatedness. Which is connection with people, feeling being part of something bigger than yourselves, purpose, alignment. I think belonging, although I don't know if belonging is a correct term to use in the definition. But I'm interested. So if we say that self-determination theory says that there's 3 psychological needs, the things that we must have to feel high quality psychological energy, motivation, right? That's well-being and all these positive outcomes that come out of it, that those need to be fulfilled. We have to feel that we're in control of ourselves, that we are moving or acting of our own volition. We have to feel connection, like I mentioned, and relatedness. And then we also need to feel competence, which is that we can apply our ability effectively. Not that we're an expert in anything, but that we're learning, growing, and able to be effective in what we do. I'm curious, based on that, do you see a relation with that into this, or an overlap maybe with the attachment theory and some of the other mindfulness stuff that you work on?
Yeah. We're driven by our subconscious needs. That's where my mind went when you were speaking is, and when you understand your attachment style, you understand your needs. And so your needs are really what drive your behavior, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your decisions. Right. And so, for example, with the anxiously attached, they have such high needs for closeness, connection, and proximity. And so their behaviors are going to match that. Your beliefs are your beliefs are in your behaviors. So again, that's where it boils down to core wounds and unmet needs. This is a huge, this is like the bread and butter of my work that I do with my clients, is getting them to understand their core wounds and their needs. When you understand your core wounds and your needs, your life can't not change, because you understand what is driving your behavior. And so what I mean by that is, okay, so let's say we have the anxiously attached who has a high need for closeness and connection, yet they have this belief of I'm not enough, or I'm unlovable. That's a big one for anxiously attached. They can believe that I'm unlovable. And so while they have this need for emotional connection with this suffering around I'm unlovable, this is the person who's going to be ruminating on relationships and people, maybe watching a lot of rom-com shows, because when your subconscious mind, if you can't meet your needs in the present, you can meet them in the fantasy. And so, it drives a lot of your behaviors. And so when you realize, oh, this is because I believe I'm unlovable. Or another way this pattern shows up is if you have a high emotional connection need that's not being met and you're in a relationship. This is where we'll see a lot of bickering, because your subconscious mind, it's a needs meeting machine, and it wants to meet its needs in the fastest way, not always the healthiest. So this is why couples they'll start picking a fight with their partner, because even though it's not necessarily the warm ooey gooey that they're looking for, well, guess what? Now they're connected again, because now we're fighting, we're bickering, and back together, and then we'll resolve, and things are back together. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's where my mind went.
No, that's good. I think it kind of reminded me. So there's an aspect of self-determination theory, and they have 6 mini theories that make up the whole theory. But one of them is about essentially orientation. So, I would argue, based on what I know about self-determination theory, that it's not that some people have a need for connection and others don't. Everyone has. It's a universal human need for connection. We all need relatedness, right? Some of us have it more than others. So we may, if we aren't feeling that need, it may appear that we need it more, because that's what we need, is we need fulfillment in that we don't have it, whereas someone who's fulfilled already isn't going out looking for it. But there's also an orientation towards a certain, and it's really more the states, the regulations. So you're more oriented towards external motivation versus internal or intrinsic motivation. But that would directly relate to the needs. So maybe somebody is more oriented towards needing that connection versus needing competence or autonomy. So I don't know.
And to your point, So let's look at the dismissive avoidant. We all have, to your point, that we all have connection needs. We are wired for connection. Neurologically, we're wired for connection. And where this gets disrupted with the dismissive avoidant is when they're not receiving that connection in childhood, they imprint the message that something's wrong with me. And so, they on a deep level crave the connection, though fear it when people are coming too close, because again, that core wound, until they learn to reprogram that core wound that I'm defective, they're always going to crave the connection, but not know how to connect deeply, because they're not even really deeply connecting to themselves often. Right. And so, it's like a longing for connection, but also like, I don't want to connect with humans. This is why we'll see dismissive avoidance resorting to what's referred to as creature comforts. So they'll binge watch TV, eat a lot of food, gamble, play video games all day, just to have a connection with almost like objects. Like, I mean, it's so common in relationships for partners to say like, I feel like my husband loves his boat more than he loves me. Or like, I love you. He loves the dog more than he loves me. Well, it's because, he's forming more of a connection to objects.
Because he does. No.
Yeah, it's because he does. No, it's because it's less vulnerable. It's rooted in a fear of vulnerability. Mm-hmm. That's where it is. It's a fear of vulnerability because emotions are vulnerable. Sure. Speaking your needs is vulnerable. Telling somebody I love you is really vulnerable. That's another issue that we see in a anxious and dismissive dynamic is the anxious. I mean, I hear it all the time that why does my husband say I love you to me? I want to hear I love you. Well, that's because it's really freaking vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And until he learns that his emotions are safe and it's okay to express, and you're not going to be rejected for your emotional expression. That's why we do the wounds reprogramming at the subconscious level, because that's where change happens.
Right.
Not at the mental, it happens at the subconscious.
Yeah, I mean, when we teach motivation and psychological needs, you try to simplify it, right? At the lowest level, you're either fulfilled or not, or there's a continuum of it. But I mean, it's just so much more complicated than that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of,
we're complex. Human beings are messy, and there's no linear one pill solution to this. And this is like why in my work, why I incorporate a variety of modalities. We do breath work for nervous system regulation, integrated attachment theory to get clear on your wounds and your needs and how to reprogram them. Mm-hmm. And I really emphasize getting into the body. I feel like that's a lot of what's missing in the attachment world is a lot of the advice is, just go be with a secure partner and then you'll become secure yourself, which to a certain degree, you might be influenced or modeled by their clear communication, their ability to speak their boundaries. But if you are operating with a wound of, I'm going to be abandoned or I'm going to be rejected, that's going to affect your behavior 100% of the time. And so until we get into the subconscious to reprogram those wounds, you're always going to be operated by your core wounds until you become aware of them and do the work to reprogram them. And the good news is that, I mean, research has shown that it takes 21 days to form a new habit or to kick an old one. And same thing with neurological reprogramming. It only takes 21 days to form a new neural network. Mm-hmm. And then you just, you keep it running. And so, yeah.
Although I think the old ones are still there, so it's easier to go back.
Oh, yeah, because your subconscious mind, it wants to preserve what's familiar, because it feels what's familiar is what's safe. Yeah. And so, your subconscious mind will 100% try to pull you back. And this is a lot of my work with my clients is where the mindful piece comes in, is becoming mindfully aware of when you hear those stories. That is your inner voice. And your inner voice is basically your inner dialogue that's narrating your whole day. Your inner voice is also that voice when you're in a conversation with somebody, but then you hear that tape playing, like, what are they even talking about? Or what are they wearing? Or it's like you become distracted. Well, that inner voice is being derived from your subconscious beliefs, and it's the lens in which you look at life through. And so getting into your body mentally is your ability to hear your inner voice. Well, guess what? You need to be able to slow down in order to hear that voice. Otherwise, if you're trapped in a fog bank of anxiety, it's really hard to hear your inner voice, to even hear those stories that are playing on repeat, because we think 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. And 80% of those thoughts are the same reoccurring thoughts from the day before that, and the day before that, and the day before that. And 95% is happening subconsciously. We only use 3 to 5% of our conscious mind. The rest is happening subconsciously. And so being able to hear your inner voice, that's when you can cancel, and learn to poke holes in the story. Ask yourself, can I know for certain that that's true, that I'm unlovable, that I'm going to be abandoned just because my partner didn't text me back? Does that mean that they've left me? Can I know for certain that that's true? No. What am I making it mean? Oh, that I'm unlovable. What am I afraid might happen? I'm afraid that he's going to leave me. Okay, well, can you know for certain that that's true? No. What else could be happening? Well, maybe he's just running late. Things like that help you slow down the story to where you're not so anxious all the time. So that's getting into your body mentally. It's getting into your body emotionally is being able to feel the feelings in your body. So what's the difference between feelings and emotions? Feelings are the sensations that we feel, and emotions are the language we use to describe it. And so with my clients, I train them to feel the emotions in their body by describing it in sensations. We describe the pressure. Is there a weight? Does it feel like a constriction? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel light? In texture, does it feel prickly, stingy, sharp, rough, smooth? Does it feel, like floaty? Just describing the texture. And the temperature, does it feel hot? Does it feel cold? Does it feel warm? Does it feel neutral? Color, does it have a color? Is it red? Is it yellow? Is it blue? Is it green? Is it rainbow? And shape, does it have a shape? Okay, why would we be describing our emotions in these ways? Because your subconscious doesn't speak in words. That's your conscious mind. Your subconscious speaks in emotions and images. And so when you're getting clear on how these emotions feel in your body, then you can begin to label them. Oh, I'm feeling heat in my face. That must mean I'm embarrassed. I'm feeling that pit in my stomach and feels like a weighted pressure. Oh, that's anxiety. I'm feeling this hollow, dense feeling in my chest. Oh, that's sadness. And when you begin to recognize the feelings in your body and placing language to them, that's when you can begin to regulate. And getting into your body physically is just becoming aware of how you feel in your body. Are you tired? Are you hungry? Are you sore? What's your energy level like? Do you need to sleep more? Do you need to hydrate? This is where, learning to ground your energy, bare feet on the grass, hydration, proper nutrition, even the people that you're around can affect how you feel in your body and that tension. And then getting into your body spiritually. And this is, again, the spirituality of your own understanding, but this is really being able to hear the guidance of your higher self. The whatever that means to you. And I mean, your spirituality it doesn't have to be praying to a deity or a goddess. It could be walking in nature. It could be journaling. It could be petting your dog. It's whatever brings your spirit to life. Your spirit that's your zest. That's your zing. That's your je ne sais quoi. And so getting into your body spiritually is connecting with that energy and allowing it to flow through you.
Yeah, no, this has been great. Is there any kind of last takeaways or anything you want to kind of leave us with before we start telling some cool dad jokes?
I'm just really passionate about sharing really practical tools that help people learn how to articulate your emotional experience and regulate your nervous system. And if you're looking for support, I'm just a firm believer that anxiety, that's what I help people with, is anxiety. Mm-hmm. Anxiety is not meant to be worked on alone. It's not. And why is that? Because when you're in an anxious state, you're in your head. You're in your head and you're catastrophizing, and every thought you think produces a neurochemical emotional response, right? So if you're in that anxious state, what do you think you're producing? A whole lot of cortisol and adrenaline, and your body is just staying in this upregulated state. And these stories feel so real. It feels so real that, well, I'm going to be abandoned. I'm going to be rejected. I'm unlovable. And it's not until we learn how to pause and stop and slow down and hear those stories and poke holes in the stories to slow the story down that you can regulate your nervous system. And so if anybody's looking for support, you can find me at www.lightfootselfandsoul.com, and I offer free 30-minute strategy sessions that help you understand where you're at, where you want to be, and how we can help you get there. And I do personal one-on-one coaching. I have single sessions. I have coaching packages. And it's just my favorite thing in life. I feel like I have the best job in the world because I get to help people fall in love with who they truly are, not these stories that they've been imprinted with from childhood, because we're formed in childhood. We create our lives from there, and you can change at any age. At any age, thanks to neuroplasticity, you can change at any age. And if you're 40 and above, you're in the second half of your life. So make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Oh, dong. Well, that's no good. We're in the second half of our life. Shit. Yeah. No, true. You can change. It's a little harder, I think, as you get older, but depending on what it is. But yeah.
Well, the benefit of that when you're older is that you have this capacity to be aware of your patterns because you've lived out your patterns so often and so much that if you have a willingness to change, I mean, you can change really fast, and like, that's what I love about this work is you can begin to see changes pretty rapidly when you're focused on.
It comes down to why. It's why are you wanting to change, right? If it's a autonomous reason, then it's pretty easy. And it actually builds vitality, right?
Absolutely.
It's not something you need willpower to do. That's when you're dealing with external type stuff, right? Well, I'm doing it for the money or something.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to have to work some willpower to keep it going then. So,
exactly.
Good. Did you bring a joke? I know we talked about it the other day.
Yes. I had my husband help me with this. I was like,
very good.
I was like, you're a dad. We need dad jokes.
There you go.
We were cracking up. Okay. These are so corny. I love them. Okay, so what did the okay, let me think of what it is. What did the tow truck driver say to the frog?
Man, I don't know if I've heard this one.
I don't think I either.
Tow truck say, I don't know. What did the tow truck say to the frog?
You're getting towed.
That was good. That's good.
Nice. Very good.
I have a second one. Okay.
Right, yeah.
What did each side of the wall say to each other?
Each side of the wall. Man.
These
You
are
gonna
good.
guess?
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you got?
I'll meet you at the corner.
I'll meet you at the corner. I like that. That's good. Yeah.
You got one?
Mine. Yeah. So, why did the toilet paper not cross the road?
Toilet paper not cross the road.
Why didn't the toilet paper cross the road?
I don't know. Why?
It got stuck in a crack.
Oh my gosh.
Where do you take somebody that gets injured in a peekaboo accident?
You've done this one before.
No.
Yeah, just before the podcast.
Oh,
to the
my
ICU.
Oh gosh.
Right.
So these are good. Yeah,
So there's a fly floating down the rim.
No.
That's a dirty joke.
What's the one Toru told you?
The one Toru? The toilet paper one came from that video he sent.
But there's the other one about the pig.
Oh, the pit. No, that's
I don't know.
that's borderline.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah. So these are Dre has been he's been our mentor for close to 5 years, and he's the one that kind of brought on these dad jokes, and so we always that's just kind of a fun thing we do.
I guess I could say what did the boy pigs say to the girl pig?
There you go.
Oh gosh. I don't know.
Damn.
There you go.
Damn.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty bad.
Yeah. So now you get like all these like Instagram reels, and you get a bunch of settings where people are just telling dad jokes, and it's just kind of fun. And then there's just and now they even start changing to like they look like little kids telling dad jokes or gorillas telling dad jokes or whatever, and so it's kind of a fun thing. So, but thank you so much for your time, though. This has been super fun. I've learned a lot. Like I said, I had a really good conversation with my wife just talking about you in your dissertation and everything you're doing. So just keep doing the work, because I think people need people like you. So this is fantastic. I learned a lot today. So thank you so much again.
Congrats! You made it to the end of the episode. Thanks for tuning in. We genuinely hope that you found value in our conversation. If you liked it, Please click that like button below and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on our current episodes. And if you didn't like it, you can click the dislike button, but make sure you click it twice. We're eager to hear from you, whether it's your thoughts, questions, topic ideas, or if you're interested in our leadership training and consulting support. Leave us a comment below or reach out to us directly at info@intrinsicfirst.com. We're open to any and all feedback. Thanks again for joining us. We look forward to having you back for more insightful leadership discussion. Until next time.